Yuleen, she started out as my alter ego, and then very quickly I became a holographic projection of Yuleen. So what you are seeing here, what you see is what you get, but maybe not. So one of Yuleen's favorite strategies these days is to kind of try to snuggle up to the alter egos of other poets. And one of those, of course, was John Berryman, who had his dream songs, and his crazy alter ego, Henry, and Mr. Bones, who appears to be a projection of Henry. So I'm going to read one poem that's based on the structure of a lot of the dream poems, which the dream poems by Berryman are all in these 6-line stanzas, sestets. And this one is called Success Bomb 45. And I just want to say 45 here does not refer to the former regime, although I guess it could at this point. But it was John Berryman's dream song 45, which begins, he stared at ruin, ruin stared straight back. And of course, Yuleen took that and it became, she stared at ruin, ruin stared straight back. Divested of her armor of thrift store duds, Yuleen's the success bomb, striking minor triumphs like enemies off her hit list. Lounging in the bathtub's bubbly suds for hours, she plays Start Me Up on her CD player 100 times till her best bodacious parts are wrinkly as gin stewed prunes. What? We hurry? Yuleen growls between the subwoofer's thudding booms and the rhetorical popping of bonbons into her lip-glossed kisser. Ah, she moans, and palms like an oracle, the H2O stains blessing her ebook of Berryman's dream songs, whichever 18 lines of frantic jabber her finger lands on. Her next career move. Then, horrors, the ebook slips from her grasp, disappears sub-bubble words. Electrifying revelation. Yuleen's last flash as the jobless dark comes un. Well, Carolyne survived that one. I don't know about Yuleen, but that was a fun one to do. And that's actually how Berryman's ends. It ends un, UN hyphen. Okay, let's go someplace else. I actually, and let's see if I can find this. A poem of mine appeared on the Writer's Almanac. For the first time, I had a poem on the Writer's Almanac on the 18th of December. And let me see if I can find, I had it open here. Here it is, I have it. And this is a poem that, I had never had a poem in the Writer's Almanac before. It used to be on the radio. Garrison Keillor would be reading those poems. But then after all the scandal with him, which I don't even remember the details of, it became an online, poem that you get in your inbox and your email every day if you're interested. So this is the poem. It's from This Dream the World. And Garrison Keillor read it on the radio, but I'm going to read it here. I'm not going to play his recording. It's called Neck Broken Resourceful Cyclist Walks to Emergency Room. And that was from a news bulletin. And it's actually a sonnet. Okay. Too late, the bus slammed on its brakes, the rider thrown over her mangled handlebars against the bus grill's bent metallic grimace. Her neck's seventh vertebra ruptured. The woman gripped her head between her palms and stood and walked to the ER a block away. Noon darkness aglow with the accident's split-second flash. To let go would kick the stool out from under the noose-necked prisoner. But I wanted to live, she told reporters later. I didn't dare to break that wishbone with myself. How else to command each cell hold its balance, inner fire cold as knowing? Her own life, could she ever again take it so completely in her hands? So if you want to see the whole poem or just see its text, go visit the Writer's Almanac site for December 18th. And December 18th, or, it's in the book, This Dream the World. Okay, where to go from here? Well, I have a new book. This, by the way, this is the Yuleen book. Looks like this. There's Yuleen on the cover. There she is. And then the new book is called Masquerade, and here is the cover. It's this wonderful New Orleans mask, sort of psychedelic, in psychedelic colors. So it's a wonderfully, it's chama atenção, as we say in Portuguese. It really calls out to you. I am going to read a few poems because it's winter, because it's snowing here, and because this book takes place in a number of different places, one of which is New Orleans and sort of Louisiana. I think I'm going to read two poems sort of set around the Christmas time. And one of them, and this is a book, it's a memoir and poetry about an interracial couple. He is African American, she is white. And these are two poems about more or less what happens when she goes with him to visit his family, or part of his family still living in his hometown. And the first one is called Your Brothers Must Think I Am. And there's one term in here you need to know, and it occurs in both poems. Miss Anne, Miss and Anne, like Miss Rosalind for like Jimmy Carter's wife or whatever. Miss Anne is sort of like, we started to use Karen as sort of a term for, overprivileged women, over entitled. But Miss Anne was the sort of a term that African Americans used to signal each other that they were talking about a white person. Your brothers must think I am Miss Anne, Miss Short but sweet, slow riff laid down in this house where your big hand anchors mine. Underscored beside you on your grandmother's best divan, I shiver in late December's chill, pluvial evenfall. Just off the bus from the Big Easy, am I the first woman of my kind? Not a question on anyone's agenda. You've brought on home to your charmed city. Nothing bright or brushed off mustard pollen's yellow flare about this one. No epidermal code switch or confabulation, just God's honest thing. Hesitations under blues that almost cradle the heart sure in her place, lover, as you utter my name before the cramped parlor's gathered kin and urged the clothes rose from its petal knot. So who am I to question my presence here, all those sweet years later lost between us? And the next poem, I'm going to read the next one in the series, which is called Family Matters. And this is more of the family there back in the hometown. That afternoon, you ramble through swamp shadow with your nephews, whooping some Choctaw call response your boy self hollered in his day. I sprawl by myself on your grandmother's high iron bed, reading, Go Tell It on the Mountain. I'm shy as wood smoke with your family, but as light slants sideways through window lace, I go out and sit on the covered porch with your younger brother, Carl, the foreman at Carbide, still in his plant uniform, close cropped afro, bleached prematurely gray, his quiet wife moored beside him in blue sailcloth. They ask you as you mount the porch steps, boots muddy, eyes gleaming from the afternoon's wetland exaltations, when you'll next see your daughter. You stop, your face a mask of shadows, eyes hardening in their sockets. The instant shimmers and dissolves. You step back, muttering something, and I unfold myself from your grandmother's lap blanket of navy plaid. Do I know you well enough? Silences that pass as principles, questions you want only to sidestep. Mirroring your moves, I mean to do the right thing, but how good is my guesswork? I follow you inside to wicker easy chairs next to your third brother, Dell, widowed at 20, his half-grown boys romping in the yard where you left them. Beside him, his second wife and days-old son on her lap, swaddled in cotton the color of sky. Child so close to day clear, he's got no complexion yet. His middle name is Roy, after his uncle, Dell says, glancing at you, who scowl and look away, face flushed burnt sienna. What did I say wrong? Dell's eyes ask. Does he know how deeply you renamed yourself? How long before I learned even one of the names your parents, grandchildren of slaves, had given you, pried loose in an off-guard moment in the middle of a story you were telling? The parlor air thickens with dread. You go to the kitchen with a closed face to help your grandmother turn the Christmas ham. Dell spots me alone, huddled on white wicker, and settles beside me like one of the elected brethren. Sister, he smiles, in all my 37 years, I've never had life so good. First shift holding steady at Lockheed, 3 strapping boys, new wife, new son. I thank the Lord for all these blessings. I smile and do the silent calculations. Dell, with his round boyish face, claiming himself 3 years senior to the eldest, you. Is he aging himself out of teenaged fatherhood? The shame of self-revelation in Miss Anne's gray-eyed gaze? Or are you the one much older than you've told? Another locked gate with a do not enter sign across it. How much do hidden years, hidden names I'm hearing for the first time matter? How to live within silences where a man's need for secrecy traduces a woman's need to know. That night in the narrow guest room's narrow bed, the future holds hands with the past, and my fear is a tinfoil phoenix whose wings flare across our years together, 2 throwaway angels on the season's highest branch. Okay, where to go from there? Maybe I think I have about 10 more minutes, something like that. Does that sound right, Joan? Pretty good? Okay. I'm going to go to something a little more, shall we say, more Euleen-like, a little bit more Euleen-like. But let me grab one thing here. Okay, I think I've got what I need. There is one poem in here called, there's a series of poems about the women in this story, because, you know, this is a story between where there's a lot of focus on the male partner, but there were also women involved in this group of people, all sort of interacting with each other in New Orleans. And this one is a character, a very Eugene-like character. Her name was Ruth Grace Moulon, better known as Ruthie the Duck Lady. And there's a picture of her. It's a postcard that was taken at the time. And there she is in her floppy hat, her Santa Fe flounced skirt dress, her roller skates, there are her roller skates, and her fuzzy duckling, which she's holding in her hands. This photo, actually, if you Google her, if you Google Ruthie the Duck Lady or Ruthie the Duck Girl, you can find it. But she was a character, all right, and she was there in New Orleans. So I'm going to read actually this poem in decasyllabics. That's 11 syllables per line. And I found that was a really useful line length. I know that in Spanish and in Portuguese, the 11 syllable line is kind of a standard. It's kind of like iambic pentameter in English. It's a really good way of structuring the length of a line. And so in Spanish, it's endecasílabo. In Portuguese, endecasílabo, I think. In any case, it has an H at the beginning. But I'm going to read the first one, in decasyllabics, about the women, Alma and Ruthie. And then I'll read the one focused on Ruthie. The lion-maned poet holds court on our blue divan, reminiscing on her Aegean days, tramping the beaches of Santorini, bare-bouldered Hellenic hills, almost too bright to countenance. She steps into her husband's giant sandal prints. Tawny cloud of her hair flows down her shoulders. Ashes from her Virginia slims scatter over the sofa's blue roses. She props naked feet against the armrest and asks us, who else can have understood that sky, that purest cerulean picked out by stars? Whose words burned into the oracular stones? We exchange looks. Are we supposed to answer? His feet were more bruised, his form more broken than her rose burned to ash in Orphic shade. But she goes on praying at the altar of his art. There's a slight backstory there. There was a poet who, we were living in New Orleans and we were asked to host this one poet because she was going to be giving a couple of readings at some high profile venues around town and nearby, like at LSU in Baton Rouge. And so we were hosting her and she was holding court on our sofa. And, you know, if you know the poet, you may recognize some of the allusions to poems and titles of her books. But, you know, you can guess later if you don't know. There's a link. Anyway, I won't say it right now, but yeah, she's a known poet. So here's the second part of that. We empty her ashtray and refill her glass, sit cross-legged on the polished wood plank floor, eye level with her ankles. Outside, through cracked jalousies, Ruthie the Duck Lady rollerblades by in red lace-up boots and Santa Fe flounced skirts, Jackson Brewery straw hat jammed down on her greasy curls. A clutch of mallard ducks, adolescents still fledged in yellow fuzz, are waddling as fast as their flat orange feet can slap the cobbled paving stones behind her. Behind them, a buggy driver hauls back on his mule, yells at Ruthie, "Hey, baby, move on over." but she slow skates straight ahead. Curses stream between her teeth in a blue billow. Her ducks veer off, spooked by the buggy's painted wheels. So here's endecasyllabics about the women Ruthie. And this little poem has an epigraph by the photographer named David Richmond. He was the photographer of Ruth Grace Moulin, who lived from 1934 to 2001. And his quote was, "Ruthie's not out of touch with reality. She's just not interested." Well, I want to talk with Ruthie, discover who is this woman inside the Duck Lady facade. The roller skates, thrift shop wedding gown and veil, the fuzzy ducklings that parade behind her through the quarters on Mardi Gras. Rumors of burly, blue uniformed police watching over her, asleep on Jackson Square park benches. I find her in a nameless bar on Dauphine Street, plucking at her torn voile skirt and runs in her pilled cotton stockings. She glares when I ask to take her photo. "That'll be $1. Her drawl is steely, her outstretched fingers ending in carmine painted claws. I falter before her scowl, her desiccated voice, her figure perched on a broken back chair, tough as a folded bird. I hand over the $1, aim and focus. She sits up straight, grin grimaces for the flash. Then she nods, turns back to her glass with its Jack's Brewery logo. My deeper questions, they never had a chance.